The first sign that Taris was dying was not the thunder from the sky. It was the silence. For one breathless moment, the endless city forgot itself. The engines of swoop gangs went still in the gutters of the lower levels. The cantina music in the upper city shivered into nothing as glasses trembled upon polished tables. In the undercity, where the outcasts wrapped themselves in rags and superstition, children stopped coughing and looked upward, though there was nothing above them but layers of metal, sewage, and the forgotten weight of generations. Then the heavens opened. Fire came down in spears. They pierced the towers first, those proud needles of civilization that had once glittered under a blue world sky before smog and wealth divided Taris into kingdoms, stacked upon kingdoms. The towers did not simply collapse. They blossomed, each one becoming a flower of orange and white light, petals of durasteel, peeling back into the night. Whole levels were split open. Bridges became molten ribbons. Airspeeders tumbled through smoke trails. Their pilots vaporized before they understood that the Sith fleet had stopped threatening and begun judging. In the command deck of the Leviathan, Darth Malak watched the first bombardment strike home. He had given the order with no ceremony, no speech, no raised fist, no need to perform strength for those who already feared him. The bridge officers had heard only the metallic rasp of his voice, the hollow violence of it pouring from the vocoder that covered the ruin where his jaw had once been. Commence orbital bombardment. Now Taris burned in the viewport, and the reflection of it painted Malak's pale face in the colors of conquest. Admiral Saul Kareth stood a careful distance behind him. The Admiral had served the Republic once, had commanded soldiers who believed that discipline was honor, and that honor could survive war. He knew better now. Honor was a banner carried by fools into graves. Discipline survived only when it bent toward power. And power, at that moment, stood before him in a black cloak and watched billions below dissolve into ash. The first wave has struck the upper city, Saul said. Planetary shields are failing across all major districts. Secondary batteries are aligning for the next pattern. Malak did not turn. And the escape corridors? Covered, my lord. Every major traffic lane is under fire. No ship has broken atmosphere. No ship, Malak repeated. Saul heard the edge beneath the words. It was not satisfaction. Not yet. The Dark Lord's quarry was somewhere below. The Jedi Bastila Shan, prize of the Republic, whose battle meditation had turned fleet engagements into slaughterhouses for the Sith. Capturing her alive had been the first desire. Denying her to the Republic had become the second. But beneath those reasons, deeper and more poisonous, lay the truth every senior officer aboard the Leviathan knew without daring to name. There was something else on Taris. Something Malak feared enough to annihilate a world. He had not said the name. No one would have survived repeating it carelessly. Revan, the dead lord, the fallen master. The ghost Malak had betrayed, struck down, inherited, and never quite escaped. The official truth was simple. Revan had been defeated by the Jedi strike team, and Malak had claimed the mantle of Dark Lord. The private truth was more troubling. Revan's body had never been paraded before the fleet. No corpse had been burned. No trophy had been mounted in the halls of Korriban. There had been only whispers, evasions, and Malak's black silence. And now, a Republic escape pod from the Endar Spire had fallen to Taris. And now Bastila Shan had survived. And now Malak was burning the planet before either prize could be found. Saul Kareth had fought enough campaigns to understand that a commander did not destroy a city to catch a soldier. He destroyed a city to kill a legend. Below, in the doomed streets, Carth Onasi was running. He had been running since the first Sith patrol found their safe house. He had run through alleys choking with smoke, past nobles screaming beside overturned luxury speeders, past Sith troopers abandoning checkpoints, because even occupation armies feared the wrath of their own masters when the sky itself became the executioner. He had dragged the amnesiac Republic soldier beside him by the sleeve, until the man wrenched free and began keeping pace on his own. The soldier had no name that mattered. Not yet. The Republic identity tags called him a minor crewman attached to the Endar Spire, a recovered asset, a survivor with unusual resilience and no memory older than a few weeks. Karth knew him as the man who should have died a dozen times since the escape pod crashed. He moved like a trained killer even when confused. He fought like instinct itself had been sharpened into a blade. Blaster bolts missed him by inches that felt chosen. Vibra-blades slipped past him only to find empty air. He had stared down rankers, gangs, and Sith interrogation squads, with a frown that suggested he was not brave so much as offended by danger. Now even he looked shaken. Another bombardment struck somewhere above the level they were crossing. The ceiling of the transit concourse buckled. A rain of sparks spilled from ruptured conduits. A crowd surged toward a sealed blast door, dozens of hands pounding against it as if metal could be persuaded by terror. A mother held up a child toward the security lens and begged someone beyond the door to open. No answer came. Karth stopped just long enough for the soldier to slam into him. "We have to move," Karth shouted over the roar. The soldier looked at the door, at the child, at the people crushed together in the smoke. "We can open it," he said. "No, we can't. You don't know that." "I know we don't have time." The soldier's eyes flashed, and for one impossible instant Karth felt something colder than anger pass through the concourse. The lights dimmed. The air seemed to bend inward. The crowd screaming faded beneath the pressure of a presence vast enough to make the world feel small. Then, it was gone. The soldier shook his head as if waking from a fever. Karth stared at him. "What was that?" "What was what?" The ceiling split. A white beam of orbital fire punched down through the city levels above, turning floors, walls, and bodies into a single column of incandescent ruin. The blast door vanished. The crowd vanished. The mother and child vanished. The concourse became a furnace. Karth felt himself thrown backward, his coat igniting at the sleeve. His skull hit the floor hard enough to crack vision into pieces. For a moment there was no sound, only a dull ringing and the taste of blood. He rolled onto his side. The soldier lay several meters away under a fallen sign, motionless. Karth crawled toward him. "Get up," he rasped. "Come on. Don't you do this." The soldier's eyes opened. They were gold. Not brown. Not hazel. Gold, burning beneath smoke-dark lashes, wide with pain and something ancient. Karth froze. The soldier blinked, and the color faded, returning to the ordinary human eyes Karth had come to know. "Karth," he said, voice raw. "I remembered something." "Remember it later." "No." The soldier pushed the sign off himself with a strength that made Karth's stomach tighten. "A bridge? A ship? Malak?" Karth hauled him up. "Move." The corridor ahead had become a tunnel of sparks and falling dust. Somewhere beneath them, a reactor screamed toward overload. Somewhere above, the Sith fleet continued its work with patient, mathematical cruelty. They had been trying to reach the hidden Beck base, then Davik Kang's estate, then any ship still capable of leaving the planet. Plans had collapsed one by one, crushed beneath the speed of Malak's decision. They were hours too late. Perhaps minutes. Perhaps they had been dead since the first turbolaser charged. Mission Vow appeared out of the smoke ahead of them with Zalbar at her back. "Karth!" she cried. Her blue face was streaked with ash, her leku trembling. She had lost her usual swagger somewhere between the first impact and the second. Zalbar held a wounded hidden Beck under one massive arm as if the man weighed nothing. "Where's Bastila?" Karth demanded. Mission looked behind her as though the Jedi might materialize through the smoke by will alone. She went back. Karth's heart dropped. "Back where?" "To get people out. Lower-level access tunnels." She said the Sith weren't just attacking the surface. She said she could feel... The world lurched. Everyone fell. Far below, deep in Taris's old bones, something enormous gave way. The city had not been built to die all at once. It had been built layer upon layer across centuries, every age burying the last and pretending the foundations would endure forever. Now those foundations screamed. Entire districts tore loose from their supports. The undercity groaned upward with the pressure of collapsing levels, and the upper spires fell down to meet it. A wind tore through the corridor, hot and filled with glittering dust. The wounded Beck began praying. Karth grabbed Mission by the shoulder. "Listen to me. Is there any route to Davik's hangar still open?" Mission swallowed. "Maybe. Through the old service lifts. But the estate is on the west arc. That whole side was hit. Maybe is enough." The Republic soldier looked toward the opposite passage. Karth saw the look. "No, Bastila's down there. And if we go down there, we all die." The soldier's face tightened. "You said she was the mission." "She was," Karth snapped. "Now survival is the mission." The words tasted like betrayal. Karth had left people behind before. Soldiers. Friends. His wife, in a way, though Saul Kareth had done the killing. His son, in another way, though anger and grief had stolen Dustil more thoroughly than any Sith raid. Every war carved choices into a person until all that remained was scar tissue shaped like duty. But Bastila Shan was not simply a person. She was the Republic's last great weapon. Without her, fleets would break. Worlds would fall. Malak would roll over the core like night. And yet the sky was falling. The soldier looked at him with that strange intensity, as if weighing not Karth's words but Karth's soul. Then he nodded once. "Davik's hangar," he said. They ran. Bastila Shan had known fear before. She had known it as a young Padawan standing before masters whose silence cut deeper than rebuke. She had known it in battle, when the first Sith fleet came boiling out of hyperspace, and the Republic line bent beneath it like reeds beneath a storm. She had known it when she faced Revan aboard the bridge of his flagship, when the air itself seemed to bow to him, and Jedi around her died with his name unspoken on their lips. But she had never known fear like this. Taris was not a battlefield. It was a world with children, criminals, cowards, merchants, beggars, dancers, soldiers, debtors, and fools. It was unjust, rotting, cruelly divided, and swollen with corruption. Bastila had despised much of it from the moment she felt its spiritual weight pressing through the Force. The arrogance of the upper city, the desperation of the lower city, the grief-choked hunger of the undercity. Yet a world's sins did not make its people less alive. Malak was killing all of them. She could feel it. Every turbolaser strike opened a wound in the Force. Each tower that fell carried thousands of bright sparks into darkness. Their terror came in waves so vast that Bastila staggered against a tunnel wall, one hand pressed to her temple, teeth clenched until pain anchored her inside her own body. "Keep moving!" she shouted. The refugees behind her stumbled through the service passage, a miserable procession of aliens and humans who had followed because she carried a lightsaber, and spoke with the authority of someone who still believed doors could open and routes could matter. A Twi'lek mechanic carried his elderly mother on his back. Two children clung to a protocol droid whose golden plating was blackened by smoke. A Selkath trader, far from Manaean and weeping without sound, helped a limping Sith deserter who had torn off his helmet and thrown away his rifle. Bastila had not asked who deserved rescue. There was no time for judgment at the end of the world. The passage led toward an old industrial lift that, according to a Beck slicer who had died getting them through the first security gate, connected to maintenance shafts beneath the western estates. If the lift functioned, if the upper mechanisms had not melted, if Davik Kang's hangars had survived, if a ship remained, if the Sith blockade could be breached, if the Force allowed one mercy among millions of cruelties, they might live. Too many ifs. A rumble passed through the tunnel. Dust poured down. The refugees cried out, and Bastila raised both hands. The Force surged through her. For an instant, the collapsing ceiling held, not stopped. Held. Like a beast caught by the throat. Duracrete slabs trembled overhead. Pipes twisted. The bones of Taris pressed downward with the weight of judgment. "Go!" she screamed. They ran beneath her outstretched arms. One by one. Too slow. Always too slow. Bastila's knees shook. Her vision blurred. She had spent herself already in the swoop arena, in escape, in healing others, in reaching across the city for the lost presence she had been ordered to protect without fully understanding why the council trembled around him. The force moved through all living things, but the living things around her were dying by the thousand, and their deaths became a storm against her focus. The last child passed beneath. Bastila released. The tunnel caved behind them with a roar that chased the refugees forward. The blast flung her to the ground. Her lightsaber skittered across the floor, its hilt sparking. She reached for it and felt something else. A presence. Familiar and impossible. He was alive. The soldier. No, not merely the soldier. The truth within him pressed against its cage. Bastila saw a flash of a dark mask, a red blade, a hand extended not in mercy but command. Stars wheeling over battlefields, Mandalorian war drums, worlds kneeling, Jedi falling, herself younger, terrified, standing amid the strike team as Revan turned. She gasped and rolled onto her back. The ceiling above the lift chamber had cracked open, exposing a sliver of burning sky. Through it, the Sith fleet was visible. Tiny black shapes against fire. One of them seemed larger than the rest, though distance should have made that impossible. Bastila knew it was the Leviathan. She knew Malak was there. She felt his hunger pressing downward, savage and triumphant, searching through death for the two bright signatures he wanted extinguished. He did not know. Not yet. The bond between Bastila and Revan had hidden them from him in confusion, pain, and the psychic shriek of a dying planet. But that would not last. If Revan fully awakened here, the Force might flare like a beacon. Malak would know. He would send every cannon, every fighter, every ounce of hatred toward their location. The refugees gathered at the industrial lift. The doors were half open. Beyond them lay darkness and a shaft that descended into red emergency lights. The mechanism was dead. A man turned toward Bastila. "Jedi, what do we do?" She stood slowly. The proper answer would have been hope. Jedi were meant to speak hope even when the body knew despair. Hope steadied frightened minds. Hope gave form to courage. Hope was a duty. But Bastila felt the numbers. The lift was dead. The upper levels were collapsing. The shaft might be climbable by the young and strong, but not by the old, not by the injured, not by children. Davik's estate might already be gone. Even if it stood, a single freighter could not carry them all. The galaxy had narrowed to arithmetic. She hated herself for understanding it. Her comlink crackled. "Bastila." Karth's voice burst through static. "Bastila, do you read?" She seized it. "Karth, where are you?" "Maintenance level below the West Arc. I have refugees with me." "The lift is out. Where are you?" A burst of static swallowed his reply. Then, "Heading for Davik's hangar. We have Mission and Zalbar. The soldier's alive." Bastila closed her eyes for half a heartbeat. Relief pierced her, too bright and too brief. "You must take him and leave," she said. Silence. Then Karth answered, lower. "We're not leaving you. You must. Bastila, listen to me. He cannot die here." "Mun, Gadkan." The comlink hissed with fire and distance. Karth said, "You know something about him." Bastila looked at the refugees. The children. The Sith deserter. The trembling old woman. The ruined lift. "I know enough. she said. Another impact struck the city. The lift chamber tilted. One of the refugees screamed as a section of floor cracked and dropped away into the shaft. Bastila raised a hand, dragging the falling man back by the collar with the force. He landed sobbing. Karth's voice came again. "Can you reach us?" Bastila looked up through the cracked ceiling at the burning sky. "I can delay them," she said. "That's not what I asked." "No." Her voice steadied. "But it is what I can do." She ended the transmission before Karth could answer. For a moment she stood with the comlink in her hand, feeling the bonds stretch across the dying city. She felt Revan's confusion, pain, anger, and beneath it something stirring in the dark. Not evil. Not good. Something older than either word as ordinary people used them. Will. Relentless, unburied will. If he escaped, the war might yet change. If he died, Malak would inherit the galaxy uncontested. Bastila clipped the comlink to her belt and turned to the refugees. "The shaft has maintenance ladders," she said. "Those who can climb will climb. Those who cannot will be carried." The Twi'lek mechanic looked at his elderly mother, then at Bastila, with broken hope. "There is no time," he whispered. Bastila ignited her lightsaber. Its yellow blade filled the chamber with dawn-colored light. "Then we make time." Far above, aboard the Leviathan, Malak leaned closer to the viewport. The bombardment pattern had become almost beautiful in its precision. Taris rotated beneath the fleet like a condemned head beneath an executioner's sword. The planetary shield grid flickered in patches, then died in great crawling webs of failure. The Sith gunners shifted from suppression to annihilation. Military districts, spaceports, communication towers, industrial reactors, noble estates, lower city support columns, undercity ventilation networks. Nothing would remain but slag and ghosts. Yet Malak felt no peace. He touched the metal guard at his jaw, fingers curling. Somewhere below, the force had moved. Not with Bastila's bright, disciplined rhythm. No, something deeper had stirred. A note from an old song he had spent years trying to silence. He remembered kneeling beside Revan in the Mandalorian Wars. Not as a servant then, not yet, but as a brother in defiance. He remembered Revan's voice promising victory when the Council offered only caution. He remembered worlds saved by ruthlessness, fleets broken by genius, soldiers following that mask as if it were the face of destiny itself. He remembered firing on Raven's ship. He remembered the moment of triumph. He remembered the fear that followed when victory did not feel complete. "Admiral," Malak said. Saul straightened. "My lord. Intensify fire on the western arc." Saul hesitated for less than a second, but Malak heard it. "That area includes several Sith ground units still transmitting. They have served their purpose." "Yes, my lord." The order passed through the fleet. On Taris, the western sky turned white. Davik Kang's estate had been built to survive everything except the end of the world. It clung to the western arc of the upper city like a jewel in the mouth of a corpse, shielded by private deflectors, hidden gun emplacements, bribed security grids, and the kind of obscene wealth that made men believe disaster was for other people. Its halls were lined with stolen art from 100 worlds. Its vaults held spice, credits, weapons, and blackmail. Its hangar housed ships with false transponder codes and engines modified beyond legal tolerance. Karth had never been so grateful for a criminal. The estate's outer walls were cracked when they arrived. One tower had collapsed into the gardens, crushing fountains and statues beneath burning stone. Davik's guards were scattered across the courtyard, some fighting Sith troopers, others looting their own employers' stores, most simply trying to flee. The bombardment had broken hierarchy. That, Karth thought grimly, was one mercy of annihilation. At the end, everyone remembered they had flesh. Mission led them through a servant's entrance beneath a toppled balcony. She moved quickly, but Karth saw how her eyes kept darting to the sky whenever the ceiling opened above them. She was young. Too young to be running through a planetary execution with a blaster in her hand and ash in her lungs. But Taris had never cared about youth. It devoured the young early and called it growing up. Zalbar carried the wounded Beck until the man died. The Wookiee stopped in the middle of a marble corridor, felt the body go slack, and lowered him with surprising gentleness beside a statue of Davik Kang rendered as some heroic conqueror he had never been. Zalbar growled softly. A sound like mourning dragged across stone. Mission touched his arm. Big Z's. Karth wanted to give them a moment. The planet refused. The corridor shook. A chandelier crashed behind them. A blast of heat rolled through the estate. Hangars this way, Mission shouted. They ran past rooms where Davik's wealth burned without dignity. Paintings curled black in their frames. Rare carpets became strips of flame. A silver protocol droid wandered in circles, repeating hospitality greetings to no one. In a banquet hall, dead gangsters lay beside overturned tables, caught mid-feast when the bombardment reached them. Their jeweled rings glimmered under dust. The Republic soldiers slowed near one of the bodies. Karth grabbed him. Not now. The soldier's gaze was fixed on a blade lying beside the dead gangster. Not a lightsaber. A vibro's word, long and cruelly balanced, its polished edge reflecting fire. He picked it up. Karth almost snapped at him, then stopped. The weapon fit the man's hand too well. His fingers closed around the hilt with unconscious familiarity, and his posture changed. The confused survivor vanished for a second. Someone else stood there, shoulders squared, eyes distant, the blade hanging low like a promise. Mission stared. Okay, creepy. The soldier seemed to hear the word from far away. He looked at the sword, then at Karth. I've held something like this before. A sword. A war. Karth did not know what to say to that. They reached the inner hangar doors as a squad of Sith troopers forced them open from the other side. For one frozen heartbeat, both groups stared at each other. Then the corridor exploded into blaster fire. Karth shoved Mission behind a pillar and fired twice, dropping the lead trooper before the man finished raising his rifle. Zalbar roared and charged, bowcaster thundering. The soldier moved with the vibro's word. He should have died. The Sith had rifles. Armor. Dot. Formation. He had a blade. But he crossed the distance between volleys, as if the blaster bolts announced themselves to him before birth. He twisted under one shot, stepped past another, and cut through the first trooper's weapon before slamming the pommel into the man's helmet. He spun, blade flashing, and the next soldier fell with a cry. A third fired point-blank. Dot. The soldier raised his offhand. The bolt stopped. It hung in the air, red and snarling, a meter from his palm. Everyone saw it. Karth saw it. Mission saw it. The Sith troopers saw it and had just enough time to be afraid before the bolt flew backward into his chest. Silence followed, broken only by the distant scream of the dying city. The soldier lowered his hand. His expression was as shocked as anyone's. I didn't. Karth stepped toward him slowly. What are you? Before the soldier could answer, the hangar doors groaned open fully. Beyond them lay Davik's private bay. The Ebon Hawk sat at the center, battered but intact, its hull plated in gray and shadow. Around it, chaos reigned. Davik Kang himself stood near the loading ramp in a fur-trimmed coat, shouting at mechanics to finish fueling. Beside him loomed Calo Nord, small, armored, calm amid Armageddon. His visor hid his eyes, but his stillness was worse than panic. Men like Calo did not fear death because they were too busy calculating whether they could profit from it. Davik turned as Karth's group entered. You, he snarled. You bring Sith into my house. Karth raised his blaster. Your house is about to be a crater. We need your ship. Davik laughed, high and furious. My ship? You think because the sky is falling, thieves become kings? Mission lifted her blaster. Pretty much, yeah. Callow Nord tilted his helmet slightly. 1. Karth's blood went cold. The bounty hunter had a habit. A count before killing. A small cruelty. A ritual. The Republic soldiers stepped forward with the Vibros word. Karth caught his arm. No heroics. The soldier's eyes remained on Callow. That man's going to slow us down. 2. Callow said. Davik.